Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She looked me dead in the eye that night and said, "Be a man and stop insisting on intimacy." Her tone was cold, clipped, like she was giving instructions to a stranger. I didn't answer. I didn't argue. I just froze, because something in the way she said it, detached, almost disgusted, hit me harder than any insult could. That was the last night I reached for her. We were in the kitchen, plates still on the table, a half-empty Starbucks cup beside her phone. I remember the light flickering above us, humming quietly, as if even the house was tired of hearing us repeat the same silent argument. She stood there, arms crossed, waiting for me to defend myself. But I didn't. I simply sat down, folded my hands, and said nothing. She turned away first, walked to the living room, phone in hand, scrolling through Instagram like the conversation hadn't just gutted what was left of us. I could see the reflection of her screen in the TV, photos, messages, attention from men I didn't recognize. Her laughter, once soft and familiar, now felt like a weapon. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee, humming to herself, her iPhone buzzing with notifications. She was dressed up more than usual for work. New perfume, tighter clothes, a little extra care in her hair. When I asked if she had a meeting, she said she just wanted to feel good again. I didn't press. I watched her leave, watched the taillights of her Toyota Camry disappear down the street, and I realized something. I'd been chasing someone who had already left months ago. That night, she didn't come home until after midnight. No text, no call, just silence. When she finally walked through the door, she looked startled to see me still awake. She said she'd gone out with friends, that I was overthinking things, that she needed space. I nodded and went upstairs. No anger, no shouting, just distance. She must have noticed something shift in me that night, a kind of quiet she couldn't read, because the next morning, she lingered longer than usual before leaving, almost waiting for me to react. But I didn't. By the time she walked out the door, I knew exactly what I had to do. I wasn't going to chase her anymore. I wasn't going to beg for closeness. From that moment on, I decided to stop proving my worth to someone who had already forgotten its value. After that night, I stopped trying. Not in a dramatic way. Just slowly, quietly, like a man pulling his hand away from a flame he finally realized was never going to keep him warm. Emily didn't notice at first. She still moved around the house like a performer on autopilot. Hair perfect, smile rehearsed, pretending everything was fine. But the silence started to unsettle her. Every morning, I'd pour myself coffee, grab my keys, and leave before she came downstairs. No small talk, no kiss on the cheek. When she asked if something was wrong, I said no. My calm scared her more than my anger ever could. She didn't understand that sometimes the loudest thing a man can do is nothing at all. That week, she started coming home later. Always with excuses, meetings, dinner with coworkers, traffic. One night, I heard her in the driveway, talking quietly on her phone before walking in. The tone was soft, familiar, the tone she used to save for me. When she noticed me watching from the window, she hung up quickly, pretending she was checking her GPS. I didn't ask. I just nodded and went back to what I was doing. She didn't realize it, but that simple choice, to stay quiet, shifted everything. For the first time, she couldn't read me, couldn't predict me, and that uncertainty started to eat at her. The next weekend, she tried to fix it the way she always did, with control. She bought new candles from Target, cooked dinner, played the same playlist we used to love. She was performing connection, but it wasn't landing. Her laughter was off-tempo, her smile too forced. When she leaned in, testing if I'd follow, I didn't move. I could feel her confusion turning into something darker, doubt. Later that night, she sat on the couch scrolling through her phone, trying to look busy. Every few minutes, her screen lit up with a message she didn't open right away. Then, without looking up, she asked if I was mad at her. I said no, just tired. She studied me, trying to find the crack, the weakness. But there wasn't one anymore. By the time she went upstairs, she looked smaller somehow, less certain, less untouchable. And when I finally turned off the lights and walked past her empty glass on the table, I realized something powerful. She was the one reaching now. And I didn't need to reach back. It didn't take long for the silence to start working on her. The woman who once told me to be a man and stop insisting on intimacy was now the one initiating conversations that went nowhere. She'd linger near me in the mornings, asking about my plans, my meetings, my day, things she never cared about before. I gave her short, calm answers, never cold, never angry, just distant enough to make her wonder if she'd already lost me. A few nights later, she came home from work unusually quiet. She placed her purse on the counter and poured herself a glass of wine. I was at the table, working on my MacBook, pretending not to notice how nervous she looked. She asked if I wanted to watch something together. I said maybe later. Her eyes flickered, a flash of insecurity she couldn't hide. She went upstairs. I heard her pacing, then silence, then the faint sound of her crying. I didn't go after her. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. You can't comfort someone who never valued your touch until it was gone. The next morning, I saw her phone buzzing on the counter. A name flashed across the screen, Ryan. I didn't need to guess who that was. She quickly grabbed it, locking the screen as soon as she noticed I'd seen it. Her face froze for a second, caught between fear and guilt, but I said nothing. Just walked past her and poured my coffee. That silence landed harder than any confrontation. By the end of that week, she started trying again, not out of love, but out of panic. She bought my favorite beer, cooked dinner, even wore that blue dress she used to wear on our date nights. But it all felt rehearsed, empty. The same woman who once rolled her eyes at my affection now stood in front of me, searching for approval. That night, as she sat beside me pretending to watch TV, she said quietly that she missed how we used to be. I just nodded. She asked if I still loved her. I told her, I don't know what love means to you anymore. Her face fell, and for the first time, she didn't try to argue. She just sat there, staring at nothing, like she was finally realizing what my silence meant. It wasn't revenge. It was revelation. And the truth was simple. She'd broken something she thought I'd keep fixing forever. But I'd stopped being that man. The day I stopped coming home on time was the day she started unraveling. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I stayed late at work, grabbed dinner alone at Applebee's, and sat there for almost an hour, staring at the people around me. Couples talking, laughing, checking their phones. Normal life. Something I hadn't felt in months. When I finally drove home, it was close to midnight. She was waiting in the living room, pretending to read. The second I walked in, she asked where I'd been. Her tone wasn't curious. It was fearful. I told her I'd been out, needed air. She pressed again, asking if I'd been with someone. I looked at her and said calmly, I didn't know you cared. That sentence landed like a stone in water. No sound, just ripples she couldn't stop. The next morning, she tried to act normal. Coffee brewing, candles lit from Target, that same soft playlist she used to play when we first moved in together. But now it all felt staged. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't doing it because she wanted to. She was doing it because she was afraid of what my indifference meant. Later that week, I started going to the gym again, something I hadn't done in years. She noticed immediately, asked if I was trying to impress someone. I told her I was just taking care of myself. She didn't believe it. Her insecurity was becoming visible, small, sharp, unpredictable. Every time my phone buzzed, she glanced up. Every time I left the house, she asked when I'd be back. Then it happened. I found her sitting on the couch late at night, scrolling through my messages. She didn't even hide it. When she realized I was watching, she froze. I didn't raise my voice. I just said, "You've got nothing to find," and walked away. That silence broke her more than anger ever could. She followed me to the hallway, asking why I was doing this to her, why I was so distant. I turned to her and said, "You wanted space. I gave it to you." She didn't have a reply, just stood there, pale, holding my phone like it was proof of something that never existed. That night, for the first time in years, I slept soundly. Not because things were better, but because I'd finally stopped trying to prove I deserved to be loved. After that night, the tension became something physical, like static in the air. We barely spoke, yet every silence between us felt charged, dangerous. She'd moved through the house trying to provoke a reaction, slamming a door, sighing too loud, leaving her phone face up on the counter with new notifications flashing from numbers I didn't recognize. I didn't take the bait. I'd just sip my coffee, grab my keys, and leave. One Friday, I came home to find the house spotless. Dinner waiting, candles lit, her favorite playlist humming softly. She was dressed up, wearing that same black dress from our anniversary 2 years ago. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her, not because she looked different, but because she looked nervous. I asked what the occasion was. She said, "I just wanted to talk." I sat down, silent. She started explaining how she felt unseen, how I'd grown distant, how maybe we could find our way back. She was rewriting history, pretending she didn't start the distance herself. I listened quietly, not interrupting once. When she finished, I said only, "Now you understand how I felt." And I stood up. That sentence broke her. She tried to stop me, grabbing my hand. I pulled away gently. She whispered that she'd made a mistake, that she'd lost herself. I didn't respond. I just left the room, leaving her alone with her performance. The next day, I took a long drive. No destination, no plan, just space. I stopped by a diner off the highway, the kind of place filled with truckers and silence. I ordered coffee and watched rain slide down the windows. For the first time in months, I felt calm. No noise, no tension, just stillness. When I got home that night, she was sitting on the stairs, eyes swollen. She asked where I'd been. I said nowhere. She looked at me like she didn't believe it, like she wanted to accuse me of something just to feel less guilty about herself. But I gave her nothing. A few days later, she called me from work, her voice trembling. She said people were talking, that someone had seen her out weeks ago with another man, Ryan. She begged me to believe it was innocent. I didn't say a word, just let her talk until she ran out of excuses. That silence, my silence, terrified her, because she realized I wasn't trying to win her back anymore. I was already gone, and she was the one left chasing ghosts. After that phone call, everything shifted. She'd crossed the line between careless and desperate. The same woman who once told me to be a man and stop insisting on intimacy was now calling me 3 times a day, just to make sure I'd answer. Her messages went from casual check-ins to long paragraphs filled with apologies, justifications, and guilt dressed up as love. I replied to none of them. I started spending more time away from home. Work, gym, long drives. Silence became my shield, and the less I said, the more she crumbled. When I did come home, I moved through the rooms like a guest. My things were still there, but emotionally, I'd already packed and left. One night, I walked in late and saw her sitting on the floor in the dark, surrounded by old photos. She looked up at me with red eyes and whispered, "Do you hate me?" I didn't answer. She started crying harder, saying she'd ruined everything, that she missed me, that she'd do anything to fix what we had. I just stood there, watching her, realizing she finally understood something I'd learned months ago. Once respect dies, love doesn't survive long after. The next day, I got a call from a friend, Daniel, the same one who'd warned me about Ryan before. He said he'd seen Ryan's car outside her office a few nights ago. Not for long, but long enough to confirm what I already knew. She hadn't stopped. She was just losing control. I didn't confront her about it. I didn't need to. She was unraveling without my help. That weekend, she invited her parents over, trying to make things look normal. Dinner, laughter, small talk, all forced. Halfway through, her mother glanced at me and said, "You look different, Mark. Quieter." Emily froze. Her father added, "Sometimes silence says everything." I didn't respond, but Emily couldn't hide her panic. The people who used to defend her were now seeing through her. After they left, she cornered me in the hallway, asking what I'd told them. I said nothing. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. I could tell she missed the version of me who cared too much, who begged for answers. But that man was gone, and in his place stood someone she couldn't manipulate, someone she couldn't touch, not even with tears. After that night, I started noticing how empty the house really was. Not the kind of empty you see, the kind you feel. The air between us was heavy, like it was holding every word we'd both stopped saying. She walked around quietly, avoiding eye contact, terrified that if she looked at me too long, she'd see what she'd created. I went through my days calm, detached. My mornings started with black coffee, no conversation. She'd hover near the kitchen island, pretending to scroll her iPhone, waiting for me to say something. But I didn't. I'd grab my jacket, nod politely, and leave. Silence became my discipline. She started trying to fix the image, not the damage. Posting photos online of us smiling from years ago, adding captions about second chances and new beginnings. It was all performance, and I let her perform. I didn't comment, didn't like, didn't react. Every time her phone buzzed, I saw her eyes flick toward me, waiting to see if I'd noticed. I always noticed. I just didn't care anymore. Her control was slipping. At dinner one night, she said she couldn't live like this, that I was punishing her. I put my fork down, looked her in the eye, and said, "This isn't punishment. It's reality." She froze, speechless. For years, she'd mistaken my love for weakness. Now she was seeing the truth. I wasn't cold. I was finished. A few days later, she didn't go to work. She stayed home, quiet, fragile, like she didn't trust herself to face the world. I came home that evening to find her sitting outside, staring at the driveway, her Target sweater wrapped tight around her shoulders. She said softly that she missed the man I used to be. I told her, "He left when you stopped looking for him." That broke her. Not in a loud way. No screaming, no accusations. Just a silence that felt like defeat. She walked back inside and closed the door behind her. For the first time, I realized I didn't feel anger or pity, just distance. In the days that followed, she became smaller, quieter, almost invisible. She stopped pretending. The makeup disappeared, the posts stopped, the smiles faded. She was starting to live in the emptiness she'd built for me. And that was the moment I knew. She finally felt what I'd felt all along. The absence of someone who no longer needed to be understood. A week later, something in her broke completely. She stopped pretending everything was fine. I came home late one evening, the house dim, quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Emily was sitting at the table in her robe, a half-empty glass of wine beside her. She looked up as I walked in, and for the first time in months, she didn't try to hide the truth behind small talk. She said she couldn't stand the silence anymore, that it was suffocating her. She said she missed us, missed me, missed how safe she used to feel before she ruined it all. Her words came out like a confession she'd been choking on for weeks. I didn't interrupt. I just stood there, watching the woman who once told me to be a man and stop insisting on intimacy, now beg for connection she'd thrown away. She asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her forgiveness isn't something you ask for. It's something you earn. She nodded, but her eyes said she knew she might never get it. Over the next few days, she started changing. No more fake smiles, no more staged apologies. She stopped wearing the mask. Instead, she moved quietly, cooking dinner for two even when I didn't eat, leaving notes on the counter saying she was sorry, going to bed early but never sleeping. It wasn't manipulation anymore. It was guilt. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and saw her sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the floor. She whispered, "I destroyed everything, didn't I?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The truth hung in the air between us like a verdict. A few days later, I found her in the backyard, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket, drinking coffee in the cold morning air. She said she'd been thinking about who she used to be, about what she'd become. She said she finally understood that love isn't about desire or control. It's about safety, respect, and presence, the things she'd taken for granted. I didn't tell her she was right. I didn't tell her I agreed. I just listened. Because by then, I'd realized something she hadn't yet. Forgiveness wasn't about her redemption. It was about my release. And I was already free. The shift was quiet but final. She began to live like someone who'd already lost what mattered most. Her movements were slower, her words softer, as if she was afraid that anything too loud might break the fragile peace that remained. I'd catch her watching me when she thought I wasn't looking, not with anger, not with hope, but with realization. The kind that comes too late. She stopped going out. The friends she used to post about had all drifted away. Her phone, once an extension of her ego, now stayed face down on the counter. I think she finally understood what it meant to be alone, not physically, but emotionally. The kind of alone that comes when the person who once loved you no longer does. One evening, I came home early. She was in the living room, surrounded by boxes. At first, I thought she was leaving. But when I looked closer, I saw what she was doing, packing away our photos, one by one. She said she couldn't stand to see them anymore, that they felt like lies frozen in frames. I told her to do what she needed to. She nodded, tears filling her eyes but never falling. The next morning, she asked if we could take a drive. I agreed. We didn't talk much, just drove in silence, past the old coffee shop, the park, the Target where we used to buy groceries on Sundays. Every place we passed was a ghost of what we'd been. Finally, she said quietly that she'd been wrong about everything. About love, about pride, about what being a man really meant. She said she used those words to hurt me because she hated how much she depended on me. I didn't respond right away. I just kept driving. The sun was setting when I finally said, "You didn't lose me because you pushed me away. You lost me because I stopped trying to come back." She turned to the window, silent, but I saw her reflection, eyes closed, lips trembling. No defense left. No control. Just regret. That night, we didn't speak. She went to bed before me, and when I finally came upstairs, she was already asleep, or pretending to be. For the first time, I didn't feel anger when I looked at her. Only distance, clean, sharp, and calm. She had finally fallen into the silence she once demanded, and I had finally learned how powerful it could be. The final shift came without warning. One morning, I woke up before sunrise and found her sitting outside on the porch, wrapped in one of my old hoodies. The air was cold, and her breath came out in soft clouds. She didn't turn when I stepped outside. She just said quietly, "I know you're done." Her voice didn't tremble this time. There was no begging, no dramatics. Just acceptance. She said she finally understood what it meant to push someone past their breaking point. That she used to think strength was about control, keeping power, setting the rules. But now she saw that real strength was the ability to stay calm when someone else tried to destroy your peace. I didn't answer. I sat beside her, watching the lights stretch across the street, catching the faint reflection of her tears on the porch railing. After a while, she said she wasn't asking for forgiveness anymore, only a chance to make things right, whatever that meant. I told her I didn't hate her. She looked at me like that was worse than anger. For days after that, something shifted again. The tension eased, but not because things were fixed. It was because we both stopped pretending. We moved through the house quietly, aware of each other but not clinging. She stopped trying to win me back. I stopped trying to prove anything. Then, one Sunday, she did something I didn't expect. She left. No fight, no argument. Just a note on the kitchen counter beside a fresh cup of Starbucks coffee. It said, "You deserve peace, even if it's not with me." I read it twice, then set it down. There was no anger in me, no relief either. Just a strange calm. I walked to the driveway, saw her Toyota already gone, and for the first time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. Weeks later, she called. Her voice was softer, clearer. She said she was taking time to figure out who she was before everything fell apart. She said she hoped I was okay. I told her I was. And for once, I meant it. Sometimes, silence isn't the end of love. It's the transformation of it. I didn't need her apology, and she didn't need my punishment. What we both needed was distance, the kind that heals without words. And in that space, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Myself. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.